To get to prosperity, most people are wanting to know what's the procedures, the systems, right? The procedures to get to prosperity. And that's exactly what I was asking. And he says to me, well, what you're missing is that there's 3 layers underneath that, which is your foundational layers.
Hello, and welcome to Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. This podcast is dedicated to chiropractors who are in the seasons of launching and building their practice. Join myself, Dr. Lona, and my co-host, Dr. Bobby, as we have conversations each week as it relates to building the practice of your dreams. And remember, you can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. We're here to lead you on the way.
What's up, rock stars? Welcome back to the Chiropractic Build podcast with the amazing Dr. Lona, Dr. Bobby. Dr. Lona, what's going on, lady? How's your day doing?
Oh, my day's great. Snowed here for the first time this winter. It's January, what the heck? But I mean, it was kind of fun to wake up to snow. So.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear. Well, it's fun, which is good. I'm on the opposite side of the globe here, guys. So I'm all the way down under, in case you didn't recognize from my accent. And so our day here right now, woke up and it's 31 degrees, I think, yesterday, which is roughly about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to, after we finish this, get a bunch of calls and go to the beach for a swim.
That sounds nice. I'm going to go put some snow pants on. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. What a contrast. That's awesome. So guys, here in the Chiropractic Build podcast, we are committed and dedicated to taking you through the essential steps to building your practice to the success and level that you want. So we're going to be talking about all systems, process, procedure, attraction, conversion, retention, team building. Remember, success leaves clues. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to try and make all the mistakes yourself. You can if you want to. If you want to spend more time, if you want to spend more time, money, you can try and make all the mistakes yourself. Right, Lona?
Yeah. You want to bang your head against the wall? Go for it. Right?
You can do it, right? I remember I used to get advice from my parents, don't do that. If I did it anyway, I'd get burned, right? Or the reality is, you can make the journey so much more enjoyable for yourself. You can shortcut it, and really, you just can look at it and say, all right, what are the clues that has been left from somebody else or other people that have been in the exact same journey? Because ready, here's what it's all about. Wherever you find yourself right now, okay, wherever you're stuck, wherever you're planning, or maybe you're stoked, maybe you're like pumping, growing. I get it, I've been there. But wherever you find yourself right now, there is somebody or there are people that have already been in that exact same position that have successfully navigated where you are right now and moved to the next version of where they want to go and where you want to go. Mm-hmm. So there's no need to try and just figure it out. Success leaves clues. There's ways to have a look at that and go, oh man, got it. Yes, thought flash, that makes sense. Let's try and apply that and let's try and implement it straight away and get runs on the board, right?
Yeah. Bobby, do you feel like, I think this is I'm so glad you started with this, because I think this is a huge part of in build. We can get so isolated sometimes of oh, my practice is this way, and this is my area and it's like this, and we forget to turn our ears outward and actually look for people that can help us in that season. And so, be careful that you're not isolating yourself and making your mind up that it's a certain way, when you could just reach out to some people that could probably help you through whatever you're banging your head against the wall, because there definitely are people out there in chiropractic that can help you through whatever it is that is the issue that you're working through.
You hit the nail on the head, Alana. I absolutely feel like that. I feel as though the biggest killer of chiropractic expansion is this feeling of isolation. It's so easy to get isolated. And there's this saying that I think I heard from our good friend, Dr. Alan Miner, and that saying is, when the winter arrives and the cold wind blows, okay, the lone wolf dies, yet the pack grows. And I feel as though that's absolutely the case in chiropractic. Even if you've gone through school and you've got your graduating cohort that you stay in contact with, even if you've got a bunch of chiropractic buddies that you catch up for coffee and go to lunch with, right? Sure, that's great, but it's very easy then to go back into the practice where you're the main person, or maybe you're with someone else, but you're feeling isolated and alone. And that isolation, absolutely, I would say, is the number one thing that's stopping chiropractic ultimately scaling level that we know that it should be on, the level that it could be on. So I'm totally glad that you pulled that up as well. Massive thing. So here's what I want to talk about today. Dr. Lona, I know you've experienced this when you're on calls with people. I know I've experienced this absolutely. But here's what will happen. You ready? So there'll be a system, there'll be a process or a procedure, okay? And we'll teach two people the same procedure. Let's just use advanced workshops. Hey, I want to do advanced workshops. It's on my heart to teach people inside my office about health and where health truly comes from. I want to start doing advanced workshops and use it as a tool to attract new people in the office, to continue to reaffirm the existing relationships and like lead to great retention. I want to start building a culture of like health and wellness in my office. I want to start doing advanced workshops and I want to pack it out. I want to get as many people there as possible. You might say, in the beginning, Bobs, I just want to get 20 there, right? Or you might say, Bobs, I want to get 200 there. Teach me how to do it. And the reality is you can teach two people the exact same system, the same scripts. You give them the same ads. You give them the same email sendouts, the same SMS templates. You give them the same internal office procedures and processes. Everything is exactly the same. And 2 weeks later, you do a review to see how they've gone, and you get two wildly different results. Lona, have you experienced that?
Yeah, I think it's true in anything we could have picked on. So whether it's external marketing or conversion rates or retentions, there's a factor that transcends all of that is foundational. And yet sometimes people want to just say, oh yeah, I got it, and not really get dipped in it. So Bobby, what is that thing?
Yeah, absolutely love it. So we're going to talk about today something that we heard through our great friend here at the Chiropractic Build podcast, and that is the amazing Dr. Patrick Chintempo. And I remember Lona story. I was probably in like my first 8 months out of practice, out of school, pardon me. I was in practice 8 months in. And I was struggling. I was probably I started on zero. I was probably at about 30 visits a week. And I was trying to figure this thing out. And, at the time, I remember I was still working a part-time job in a supermarket that I work in as a student to kind of supplement my income. Because I was like, look, completely raw here. I was like getting $300 from the supermarket. At that stage, I'm probably getting like a few $100s being a chiropractor. So I was like, oh, to put it together, I'm getting about $800-900 a week, which is enough to sustain myself. And I was trying to figure it out. I think the most Googled thing, if you looked at my search history, was how to attract new patients, right? Chiropractic new patients, chiropractic marketing. How do I get new people in the chiropractic office? I was searching that all the time. And I was seeing all these different, tips and advice and procedures. And then one day I'm talking to my good friend now at the time, and my mentor at that time, Dr. Patrick Chintempo, and he says, look, you're focusing on the wrong thing. What you need to understand is that there's a base foundation to everything. And so he introduced me to this concept that I want to share with everyone today, and we want to go deeper on, which is called the 5 Ps to prosperity. So it's this pyramid. So I want you to imagine in your head, there's a triangle, there's a pyramid. With the tip of the pyramid, okay, being at the very top of the pointy part, and we've got 5 levels to the pyramid. And he goes, Bobs, the top of the pyramid, I want you to put on that top level, let's call that level 5, prosperity. Now, prosperity is however you define it. That doesn't just mean financial prosperity. It can be financial. Okay, it could be time prosperity. It could be freedom prosperity. It could be however you want to define it. At the time, Lona, I was together with my now wife, so we were dating at the time. But I knew even back then, we're going to get married. I knew she was the girl for me. And I knew that was the path that we're going to go down. And I was like, yes, that's what I want. I want not just to build an amazing practice or a remarkable practice, but I want to build as part of a remarkable life as well. I want to have everything, all 7 parts of life. I want to have it because I believe you can have it all. I hate that saying, oh, well, it's going to cost you something. One thing comes at the expense of another. Sure, there's always sacrifice to be made. I'm not saying that, but you can absolutely have it all, 100%. And he goes, well, to get to prosperity, most people are wanting to know what's the procedures, the systems, right? The procedures to get to prosperity. And that's exactly what I was asking. And he says to me, well, what you're missing is that there's 3 layers underneath that, which is your foundational layers. And he goes, layer 1 is where I want you to start on. Okay. And now looking back in my journey, and we get the great pleasure, I know, Lona, you and I, to have visibility into hundreds of offices, quite frankly, globally. And I see this profoundly on different levels that people get to in practice success and practice building. And that is the base foundational layer that everything gets built upon is your philosophy. And philosophy is like, okay, what is your understanding around the chiropractic philosophy? The chiropractic tenets. What are we built on? What are we based on? What are the principles and what's the philosophy of chiropractic? Furthermore than that, what's the history of chiropractic? Where did we come from? What have we been? Because if you truly want to understand what you do today, you need to understand where we come from, okay? Whatever your thoughts or opinions are. But he goes, you need to go deep with the philosophy of chiropractic, where it comes from, and exactly what are the foundational tenets and principles that we work on. That's your foundational principle. Lona, what's been your experience with philosophy and chiropractic?
I love it. I mean, I'm a geek for chiropractic philosophy. So I will tell you that I think because of how strong my root has been in chiropractic philosophy, that is the foundation in which so many things have been able to grow from, but it couldn't have been done without that there. Because it transforms you. So you're much more certain, you're convicted, you have this much bigger like why behind everything you're doing. In my experience, when I was growing my original practice, I think I was probably at, I don't know, 150, 175 a week. And I remember talking to a mentor and he's like, you need to go sit in a room where you just, everyone around you is oozing chiropractic. And by osmosis, you're going to learn how to speak it in a way that's like just much more clear and concise and like become chiropractic. And so I started to like travel out to New Jersey and go to New Beginnings where like Sigafus and Reggie Gold and all of like the greats in chiropractic from years ago were still alive and still there at the time. And I just sit there and I knew like, oh my gosh, like I am lucky to just sit in this room and hear chiropractic. And I'd go back and my practice would grow. And I really wasn't doing anything other than just like solidifying that this thing called chiropractic is life changing, that I can speak it to people, that people do get it, and that it's not just even what I say, it's like emanating from you. And that's the part that really can't be hacked. You have to really, truly love this thing called chiropractic. Now, we're all going to have different ways we explain it and different things about it that resonate with us. But if we're a chiropractor, we really cannot shortcut that part.
Yep, absolutely. Man, how lucky were you? You got access to the Sigafusses, right? And the Fred Barges and the Reggie Golds, huh? Wow.
Yeah, it was something to sit in that room for sure.
Wow.
And then, like they liked letting new people speak sometimes. So I remember speaking at a seminar there where I was thinking, I have no business being on this stage right now. But that'll force you, that grows you to like, oh my gosh, people are listening that have been doing chiropractic longer than I've been alive. So
Yep.
it's a growth opportunity,
Yep.
obviously.
100%. Hey, can I share a story? I want to share a story because my journey for this is really, really clear. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember when I first came out and I was Googling, how to get new patients into a chiropractic office. I remember speaking to the time of one of our great mentors, Dr. Stephen Franson, and he said something that made a bit of sense at the time, and now it makes absolute sense. And he said, your attraction, i.e., your marketing, your ability to get new patients, will be a reflection of your certainty. I was like, certainty around what you do, who you are, what you do as a chiropractor. And I looked around other chiropractors that were just like getting new patients with ease. And that's one thing they had in common. They were super certain about chiropractic as the ability to help and serve humanity. So I remember thinking, yeah, where do I get certainty from? 8 months out of school, I went to a pretty mechanistically based school. I was like, how do I get certainty? Where does it come from? And he said, look, you can borrow other people's certainty through their experiences, okay, that they've had, because our mindset today, what it is a combination of the people that we've met in the past and the experiences that we've had. Those two things come together and equal the way that you view life right now today. So I did that. I borrowed his certainty for a period of time, Then I learned, oh, you can do spinal screening. Great. I'll have a certain amount of certainty and I'd sign up some newies. Then I learned, great, you can film video content later on and create ads and you can fill workshops. I was like, great, okay. And then here's the problem. One day, long story cut short, I'm doing initial consult and this lady comes in. PhD immunologist. And I was like, ooh, okay, my certainty is about to get tested here. So as we're going in through the initial consult, she's that kind of person who everyone knows, everyone's had before, right? That's just mega difficult. Every question that I'm asked is kind of met with this wall of resistance of like, why is that important? So what do you do for work? I'm not sure why that's important. Oh, because it kind of tells us about stresses you expose your body to on a daily basis. Okay, well, I'm a researcher, right? So I'm doing a lot of researching. Are you looking at microscopes? I didn't know what to say, but quickly my certainty was getting eroded, right? And then it hit me like a ton of bricks where initial consult, she goes to initial consult and I'm thinking, oh, no way she's coming back to the report of findings. 2 days later, she shows up to the report of findings and I'm kind of like, semi-happy, semi-like, great, you're back, right? So the report of findings unfolds, and I'm kind of going through this report of findings, thinking, no way, whatever I say, she's not starting care, right? Let's just get through this and let's get to the point where she says, I'll think about it and I'll get back to you, or I'll check with my insurance, or whatever the excuse was. Anyway, get to the end of the report of findings, and she's like, okay, so are we starting? I was like, oh, great. Yeah, we're starting. Fantastic. Another one saved, right? And anyway, then she starts care, and I start cutting corners, right, Lona? I'm like feeling like my certainty with this is lower than hers. She's a PhD immunologist, right? What would I know? And one day she's coming, getting adjusted, still super resistant, by the way. And this is what she says. She goes to me, Bobby, shouldn't call me Bobs. Bobby, shouldn't call me doctor, that's for sure. Bobby, I'm feeling better. She had these chronic headaches and migraines that had resolved and gone away. She's like, I'm feeling better, right? Like my headaches have gone away. And I'm thinking, wow, how long did you have them for? 20 years. Look at that. How good's chiropractic? Didn't say that, of course, because my certainty wasn't at that level yet. And she goes, but I've got one problem with this office. And that problem that I have is that you have a book out there in the waiting area called Well-Adjusted Babies. And that book shouldn't be there because it talks about and it has an anti-vaccination stance towards children, and that's wrong. All children should be getting vaccinated. And I was like, ooh. And at that time, truth be told, okay, I didn't have an opinion on vaccinations when it came to kids, at least. I didn't have children. I was literally like 24 years out, first year out of school. I was like, I don't know, like, yeah. So when she told me that, I was like, where do we go with this, right? I've got no clue. And so what I did, right, is I just went back to the foundational principles of chiropractic. And this is the moment that transformed everything for me, right? And I said to her, I go, so what is the issue that you have with chiropractors adjusting kids? And again, I'm going to give credit here to my amazing friend and mentor, Dr. Patrick Gentempo. And she's like, well, there's no evidence you could do harm to kids, right? Why do kids need to get adjusted? They don't have back pain. Now, I know in her case, she suffered from this blood disorder where she actually had to get open heart surgery on one of the valves inside of her heart, right? Because she had a blood disorder which was affecting her ability to clot. And so she got this surgery done on it as a preventative means, right? Kind of like almost like a lot of bypass surgeries. So I go to her, I go, hey, so I know that you got the surgery done for your heart like a few years ago, right? Why did you do that? And she goes, well, I got that done from a preventative basis. I got this condition. It could be life-threatening. And I was like, well, you don't know for sure, you're assuming, right? She goes, well, no, because other people that have had that, they also, if they don't get these surgeries, have a high incidence of like massive heart failure or bleeding out, right? I was like, okay. So there's no research done on that. You've kind of deduced that, right? Like you've assumed it through other truths that you know. And she was like, well, I guess so. Okay, so when it comes to the nervous system, which is inside the spine, and we agree the nervous system controls all function of the body. And she's like, totally? Yep, it does. And again, the spine protects that, which is why you were getting headaches and migraines before because your neck wasn't in optimal position. So that was interfering with the nervous system around the neck. She's like, yep, totally makes sense. So if there's interference in the nervous system, we can deduce we should adjust it. And she's like, yep, okay, cool, that makes sense to me now because she'd seen the benefits, right? And I go to her, is that true in everyone? Adults only or kids too? The kids have a spinal nervous system that should be looked after as well. And she pauses for a second and she goes, you're good. That's a very clever point. And I go to her, not really. You're the PhD here, right? I go, all I'm doing is just communicating the truth. And she goes, no, but you're really good. You're communicating in a really good way. And that's the moment that I realized chiropractic and everything that we do in our office really is just universal laws and principles. That's all it is. Right? And you can call them chiropractic principles once they get to elements of nervous system and spine, but it's a universal law and principle. No person in their right mind, if you say to them, hey, what's the organ that controls all function of the body? No one's going to say to you anything other than the brain. Or if they don't know, they might say the heart, and then you tell them when you go to bed at night what tells your heart to work, and they go, oh, well, my brain does that. So everyone agrees. Doesn't matter which surgeon, PhD, immunologist, when you say what's the organ that controls all function, but they're going to say the brain. When you say, how does it do that? Through which means they're going to say through the nervous system. When you say what protects the spinal cord and a large part of the nervous system, the skull and the spinal column. So therefore we can assume and deductively, we can deduce that if the spine starts to get problematic, that can have an influence on the nervous system and therefore we need to adjust the spine. And for me, Lona, that was the moment, boom, everything blew up. And I was like, oh my goodness, our philosophy is really what gives rise to your certainty. And when I realized this, I had this moment of like invincible. I'm like, doesn't matter what event that I'm doing, mate, I'm going to be just speaking the truth and people just start to pour in through the doors.
Yes.
What's
what you did there is you took this complex thing and you're able to speak about it simply and in terms where you say like neck instead of like occiput cervical number one, and that is a way also that we take this philosophy and we try and relate it to someone that isn't speaking this jargon all day long, right? And so this is why we have to like ooze it. You hear that concept of like when you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice, right? It's not banana juice. And it's like when you squeeze a chiropractor, does chiropractic philosophy come out? You got squeezed that day and chiropractic came out, but so many of us haven't had maybe the good fortune to have been mentored that way or been in seminars that have gotten us to that point when we get squeezed, we back down. or we spout off something that was like board approved, but maybe not at all related to like above, down, inside out healing properties. And then our practice is a reflection of that.
Yep, spot on the mark. So we said that there's 5 parts to the pyramid. The top part that we're all trying to get to is prosperity, however you defined it. And the base foundation of the pyramid is philosophy. You've got to have a solid understanding of philosophy. Then philosophy gives rise to the next level of the pyramid. And the next level of pyramid is purpose. One thing that is absolutely common among all practices that are on fire and all chiropractors that are on fire and growing every single quarter is that you can see they are on purpose. They're on mission. It's not just a job for them. It's not just I'm going to show up 9 till 5. It's not just I'm going to go and adjust these people. It's purpose, right? There's this deep desire in them where they're doing what they're put on planet Earth to do right now, at least in this season of their life. Lona, what's been your experience with purpose and how philosophy gives rise to your purpose and what that fire is inside of you?
Purpose move mountains, right? Purpose is what, like, your feet hits the floor. And honestly, I think because we know this thing in chiropractic, this above, down, inside out concept, like that your body heals from above, down, inside out energy. Well, your whole life is a reflection of that too. So when you get lit up by this thing that pulls you out of bed, it also is going to pull more opportunities to you. There is a practical reason why you getting more and more clear about what you were put here to do and let that fuel you. I think you literally get to like move through this experience of business and the trajectory of your life in a different way. So that's my experience with purpose. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. And if you're someone that's sitting there going, how do I get in purpose? How do I like get on fire? Like I see it in you guys, I feel it. I do recognize what you're saying. I see it in other chiropractors that are killing it, that are smashing it, right? The reality is you've got to go back first and get in touch with the philosophy, because when you learn about the history and the philosophy of chiropractic, I'm going to make a stand on this now. You ready? You can't help but get fired up and get on purpose about what you're doing. And if you're not, I'll say it right now, you're in the wrong profession. Right? And I know that might be like, pretty harsh, Bobs, that's pretty harsh, but I'm being dead serious. If you look at that and you actually truly understand the philosophy and what we've been through and where we're at right now currently in the history of chiropractic, and you don't get fired up by that, you're focusing in the wrong area, right? 100%. So your philosophy gives rise to your purpose. Now, here's what we know. When you have someone that has solid understanding about the tenets of chiropractic, that gives rise to their purpose. There's a burning fire inside of them that they want to do more, help more, see more, not just their community and their people, but also chiropractic. They make it bigger than themselves, okay? That then gives rise to the third part of the pyramid, which is what we call psychology. And psychology is, okay, what are the beliefs and what's the mindset behind how you operate? Because if you want better outcomes, your behaviors drive your outcomes, okay? So if I want to get fit, if I have a behavior where I exercise every single day and eat healthy, I'm going to get fit. Well, here's the thing. We know what drives behaviors is beliefs. So you can have someone that has a belief of, oh, well, exercise and nutrition has no impact on fitness. If that's what they believe, therefore their action steps will be, I'll eat whatever I want. Training's not important. Therefore, the outcomes they get is an unfit and unhealthy body, right? So your philosophy will give rise to your purpose, and your purpose gives rise to your psychology. How do you wake up every day? Do you wake up every day saying, I can't wait to get to my office? I can't wait to get to my office and start helping people and serving people and adjusting people. I can't wait to get tonight's dinner workshop. I've got 50 people booked in. Those are 50 people that should be in our office getting checked and adjusted regularly. I can't wait to get out there and speak the message. I'm pumped. I've got 6 reporter findings today stacked up. I can't wait to deliver the message because I know with all 6 of those people, they need what we have and it can transform their life and their family. So I'm pumped. I've done all the preparation work necessary. I'm up to date exactly with their case. I've reviewed their file, reviewed their x-rays, reviewed any scans we've done. And yes, I've got complete conviction about exactly what's going on. And I'm pumped to deliver their reporter findings, right? What's your psychology with how you're approaching practice? What's your psychology with how you're approaching life? Are you tap dancing to work? Okay, Warren Buffett talks about how even at today, he tap dances to work. He loves going to work at age, how old he is now, 86, 87, right? Your purpose gives rise to your psychology. Lona, am I right? What have you found about that? What's your feelings towards this?
Yes, I think, and I think that's also why the foundation is so critical, because there are going to be moments in practice that you have to do things that don't necessarily excite you. There are moments that it's like, oh, I got to deal with this thing and it's stressful, right? But if you have a solid purpose that you're resting on of like, there's a bigger thing happening here. And because of that, I need to like handle this. And my psychology around this is like, I must also work through the hard stuff, because I'm so committed to this purpose, that's going to lead you through both the good and the challenging times. So yes, to like, it should energize you and put your feet on the floor. And it's okay if you don't fully have that yet, but ask yourself those questions like, when do I feel energized? And what are my thoughts while I feel energized versus when I feel de-energized or I've lost the vision or the purpose? And then what's my thinking like then? And I think if you're willing to look at your own thoughts, you'll see a difference there.
Yep, spot on the mark, 100%. I love that graphic. There's a graphic, I think, of two people riding on the same bus, and one person's looking at sunshine and rainbows, the other person's looking at like a dark cliff, right? But they're on the same bus. So, you know, what's the mindset that you choose to go to the office with every single day and quite frankly, wake up with has a huge impact. Because here's what it brings me to. The fourth level of the pyramid. And I know this is the sexy part. This is the part that we all love. This is the part that teach me this. And this is the part that in this podcast, we're going to be going super deep with. And that is your systems and your procedures. So your systems procedures then can be built on the right psychology. And that's why two people learn the same system procedure and apply it differently, get different outcomes or different prosperity. So systems we know are reproducible. Guys, successful, ready? I'm going to say this super slowly now for everyone. Successful chiropractic offices have been getting built for decades. Success leaves clues. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's things that work, that have always worked, that still work, that'll continue to work. Now, there's evolutions, and of course, there's new technology, and there's ways to progress and develop, and more than ever, make it easier to get our message to the masses. And boy, it's a sexy message. But we've got to have the procedures to get it to the masses, right? And to get it in a way that's going to be compelling, it's going to drive people to get into your office. So your psychology, then we build procedures on top of that. Lona, I know that you guys are systemized and processed and have procedures for everything. I love systems. What's been your experience with procedures, systems, and leading to predictable growth, predictable outcomes, or prosperity in this sense?
Yeah, anytime I resist it, then it usually is like also what slows us down. So like whether it's resisting putting more communication in place or the discipline to follow through with the training that's needed, like you're just slowing your own growth down because everything that is on like the freedom you want has containers put around it and is systematized and organized and communicated well. So it's an evolution. You know, you may think you're well systematized and then you get around people who are at like the next level and you realize, man, there's a lot more for me to like bite off here and implement. And it's like my experience coming into TRP and learning the CEO program and applying it to our practices was like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? The longer I like have been in and implementing and putting systems in place that are next level for us, like you can just see the fruits of your labor, both financially and also what's possible with this like mission and purpose that we are fulfilling together as a team. So it's really important.
Absolutely. I love it. Systems lead to predictability, and predictability leads to ease and flow. If you want less headaches, you want more predictability, right? And so I love procedures. I love systems for that. That's, you know, for me, that's the big thing. We went through a point when I'll share my story later down the line, but went through a point that we grew by about 650 visits in the space of 18 months. And it was because our systems and our procedures clicked with all the foundational stuff that I was working on that we covered today, right? So yeah, when you build your procedures properly, guys, think of that as a machine. And it's a machine that is the best machine in the world. It gets people the most predictable and best outcomes when it comes to their health. Number two, it gives the most satisfaction to your team, because if your team sees, man, we've got this predictable way of getting people healthier from the craziest of stuff that we see coming into our office, right? They're going to fall in love with chiropractic when they see the amazing miracles that are happening as well. And it's this amazing predictable machine that every dollar that you put in, you get $2, $3, $4, $5 back, because it's leading to a profitable business that actually enables you to, yes, have all your needs met, but give back. If we're going to grow chiropractic, that starts with more successful chiropractors that are having their own needs being met and living the life of their dreams in abundance, that they can actually then give back to chiropractic or other causes, whether that's your church, whether that's community groups or other things that you're passionate about, right? But the reality is, if you have a machine that you put $1 in and it gives you $4, $5, $6 back, how many dollars are you going to try and put into that machine?
Okay. A lot more dollars. Yeah.
Many as I can find. I'm going to try and find as many as I can to put into that bloody machine, right? Because I know that I built this thing that's bloody amazing. So we call that the 5 P's to prosperity. Now, check this out. Final thought. The bottom 2 levels, philosophy and purpose. That's the cause. So you've got to start with philosophy and purpose. And then the top 3 levels is the effect. That will give rise to your psychology. When you learn the systems, process, and procedures well, you'll execute them in a meaningful way. And then ultimately, time multiplied by intensity of focus leads to prosperity, however you define it for yourself. Dr. Lona, final thoughts on this?
I would just say action step for you is if you're like asking yourself, yeah, maybe I need to like go back on this foundation, is like reach out. Do not be the person that's like stays in isolation. Like Dr. Bobby and I would be happily to send you a list of books and seminars we got to that helped us build our philosophy. You know, the world is your oyster with podcasts and YouTubes and recordings of Reggie Gold from years ago. Like there's no excuse to not get dipped in chiropractic philosophy, and then help that to like light your fire for whatever your version of that and your purpose will be. So that's your homework after this, this recording with us, is to like make sure that you don't stay in isolation if you're feeling like, man, I don't know if I have it. Like, let's cultivate that for you.
Yep. I love it. I love it. That's amazing. And you said something key there I just want to highlight. And that was, and then you can make your own version of it. Absolutely. You can make your own version of it. So there you guys got it. Homework team is go back to the first part of the pyramid, philosophy, get re-dipped in that. Hey, and remember, if you're not sure, we get these questions all the time, reach out. Dr. Lona and both myself are super accessible to you guys. Shoot us a message and we'll send you a list of things that we found super beneficial or what the right area might be to put your energy, intention, and focus into. Dr. Lona, awesome chatting. I'll let you go get back to the snow and get out there in the sun. I'm going to go head to the beach very soon for a swim.
Sounds great. See you soon, Dr. Bobby.
Love it. All right, guys, we'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, share with your friends, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, please click the links in the show notes to schedule a call.